Hey you, come, gather around the campfire, and welcome to the party. This is Party Chat, a JRPG podcast where we talk about everything that we love in the world of JRPGs and other Eastern titles. I am one of your hosts, Cameron Hawkins, and with me, as always, is my party partner, Kevin Kenson. Kevin, how you doing this week?
I am doing well. How about yourself, Cam?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. You look like you got like a canvas in the background right there. What is that? Yeah.
This is my bounce. I usually pull it out of frame before we record, and I didn't today.
Okay. No, like
yeah, when
no.
when I set up for recording like regular videos, I'm the opposite direction that I am right now, and so I use this to bounce light and shape my face and such.
Okay. It adds something, you know what I mean? It adds something to the background. Um, and with us today, we have a special guest. He is the Magitech Dad. He is the number one Final Fantasy VI fan there is.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
From Super Deluxe Gamecast, we have Mr. John Phipps. John, how you doing?
Hey, buddy. If you guys are like the party members, and I like the guest character that pops in for maybe like an hour, is like really powerful, like overpowered, and then drops from the party because of plot reasons. Is that basically what we're talking about here?
Yeah, that's what we're doing. It's not death. Don't worry, you're not Tella. But
Okay, good,
yes,
good, good. I don't want to be General Leo either. So,
How you doing, John?
I'm good, man. I'm tired. At least things throughout the world are calm and reasonable, and there's not a whole lot going on. So,
Yeah,
the sunny skies and nothing but peace everywhere. It's great.
Everything is fine, man. Everything's
fine.
A-okay. Yep.
I think there's a meme about this.
We're super glad to have you. We've been wanting to bring more people onto the pod, and you were one of the first people that came to my mind from the get-go, of course. And you've had me on your podcast several times. So
maybe a bit, yeah, quite a bit. You're one of our most recurring guests. So
yeah, because if you just ask me to come on, I'm like, yeah, I'll come on. Let's talk.
Yeah, sure, let's do it.
Yeah.
I've literally asked Cam 10 minutes before the show starts. Hey, man, you want to come on? He's like, yep.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like, if I have the capability, like, I'm just like, yeah, sure. Sometimes I even have like plans. Like I have like video game plans. I'm just like, oh well, John needs me, so I'm gonna hop on the podcast.
That's how cool our podcast is, but two, that's also how compelling I am. So,
well, we have a pretty light news story this week. I have no opening spiel for you, Kevin. Because honestly, the one I was thinking about talking about is kind of wild, even for this podcast. Like, I'm just like, I'm just gonna.
Is Love Island related again? Is that?
No. It's okay. Now I gotta explain it to me, and I gotta explain it to you. If you are listening to this podcast in the ears of children, y'all need to skip like 10 minutes. Y'all need to skip like 10 minutes. This is very NSFW.
Where's this go?
Okay, I'm just gonna start talking now. So, I was scrolling on TikTok, as most people do, and I scroll to this ad, and I've only seen it one time, and I'm on TikTok pretty frequently, so I'm just like, I was flabbergasted at what I saw. So I scroll, and what I see is this. It's definitely like I assume some AI generated that, but it was crazy. It was this girl that was like post-facial, guys. Like, it looked like she had that going on her face.
Yeah, got a good skincare routine going. I gotcha.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, great skincare.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. And she's just like promoting this app called, like, I don't even want to say the name of the app because I'm not trying to give a free promotion. But like, I was just like, what the fuck am I seeing on this platform? And how did this get approved?
I mean, advertising in general has been kind of a mess across a lot of social media. Like, have you seen ads on?
Oh, the ads are terrible on TikTok.
But even like Twitter and stuff like that. Stuff like that just kind of pops up. It's pretty freaking wild.
Twitter like makes sense because gestures broadly.
Yeah. Yeah.
TikTok to a
Right.
certain extent, like it wasn't, for a long time I wasn't like that. But now it's just like, especially for me, as someone who's like, I mean, I don't even know if it's just for me, but like, I go on dating apps and stuff.
Sure.
And so I get a lot of dating app stuff. But most of it's like pretty normal. But this was like, what the fuck? Like how did this get signed off on? How did this happen?
Right.
So it was crazy.
I mean, they're delisting the current form of it soon, right? Because we're gonna get like a new America specific version or something with like a different name.
I don't know.
I was
I don't
reading
know.
something about that. It potentially because of all the everything that has been dealing with current government. I think there was some talk of like taking down the current version of TikTok that's available for US and then launching like a US platform specific version. That way they can have regional specific restrictions. So maybe this is just a weird last hurrah where they're just putting every ad up that anyone's given them money for. I don't know.
Yeah, but it was just very bizarre, and I was gonna talk about it, and then I was like, nah, I'm not gonna talk about it. But yeah, so there's that. That was crazy. But anyway, John is just like, what the fuck? His entire face.
Dude, we have talked about far weirder subjects on SDGC, and you know this, Cam.
Oh,
So,
for sure. I just like don't, I just wanted to give a heads up to those that are listening around. Maybe they're driving their kid to school or something
Yeah.
like that. Be like, hey, don't let this part play in the car. But yeah, so we don't have a lot of news this week. Very light news week. But that gives us more opportunity to go more in depth and just longer on our topic of the show this week, which I think John will be very knowledgeable and have some great insight and opinions on, even if some of them.
It's about time. It's about time.
Yeah, it's about time we got some good takes on this podcast.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking to that and to myself as both of us, Kevin.
No,
I'm not. And we
love...
agree on most things,
yeah.
Kevin. We agree on most things.
I actually love how we have this like light thing going on right now. There's a couple takes that you and I will go back to that our own audience members are just like, why, man? Like, why? Like, this morning we actually had to we didn't have to, but Try was lamenting a little bit about how much we like dunked on Persona 5 once again, even though I brought it up in a positive light last week. I was like, hey, like this is a definitive game of its gen. I don't think it's the best one, but it is like what happened.
but yeah, because like we think all three of the main Persona games are phenomenal games. We just think 5 is notably the worst of the three. Like that's fine.
Meanwhile, there's a small pang in my heart as you say the 3 Persona games.
The main 3, I said. The main 3.
That still hurts.
Well, that you're gonna have to get over. That's just the facts. That's just the facts there.
Atlas will remember them at some point. It'll happen.
But yeah, but also, John has his own takes, and I'm sure, and I know that there's some already that we're gonna talk about that I'm gonna be like, yo, what's up with this? But we're gonna get into some housekeeping. If you've been enjoying the show, please go to youtube.com/@partychat_JRPG pod. Hit the subscribe button over there. Go to your podcast platform of choice. Follow us. Give us 5 stars. It really helps us out. If you want to support us financially, we have a Patreon where we have several tiers, including with rewards like getting the podcast a day early, access to our exclusive Discord, monthly Q&A, and Campfire Catalog, which is our book club podcast, which our game currently is The Legend of Dragoon, which I've been playing. I finally gotten back to, and I've been playing a good chunk of that. Some shit has definitely happened in that game.
I saw you. I think you technically finished disc 1 because I saw you post one spoiler, and I was like, "Oh, he got to that." And I was actually waiting for you to hit that moment.
Really? That's disc 1? That's in disc 1?
I believe so. I think that's the end of disc 1. What you were posting. I could be wrong. I might have my timeline off a little bit, but
yeah, because I'm just curious because like without saying spoilers, like I'm fifth, like that the like how long to beat says it's like a 50-hour game.
Yeah,
and I'm on like hour 10. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Huh. Okay. Is
so.
that game 2 discs or 3 discs?
I don't remember off the top of my head. It's been a minute since I opened up my copy.
I think it's 3. I want to
I think
say
it's
Legend
3.
of Dragoon is 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then okay, yeah, that sounds about right. Then I'm cool with
Mhm.
that. That's just right with me. And then lastly, go to youtube.com/Kevin Kenson and hit the subscribe button over there as we're trying to get him to 1 million subscribers before the end of 2025. John, before we get into the news, tell the people about yourself a bit. Tell them about what you
Oh,
do and
oh
pitch your stuff.
God. Geez,
Introduce
yeah,
yourself
you
to
don't
the
want
rest of the
that.
class.
Well, from on a personal note, for 20 up until this year, for 21 years, I was a counterintelligence agent with the Department of Defense. I recently left, looking for other opportunities. On a content creation note, I'm the creator and co-host of Super Deluxe Gamescast, which is live on twitch.tv/official SDGC every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we talk about the news of the week, we talk about what we've been playing, all that good stuff. We got a big cast. We're a lot of fun. We got a Discord. You guys should join. We've got about 500 members in there. We have a lot of cool guests. And you should definitely come check us out. That's official SDGC on Twitch every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, yeah, please come check us out. I would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah,
Do it.
it's awesome. Well, for the news this week, we have Ghost of Yotei getting a state of play tomorrow or on July 10th for the day that's released publicly is on July 10th. this episode of the podcast, but we're recording it a day before. So, John, have you played Ghost of Tsushima? What are your thoughts on that game? Do you enjoy it?
I have not played it at all.
Okay.
Never ever played it. I don't know why, but there's just something about it that doesn't really speak to me.
Sure.
I honestly couldn't tell you why. Maybe it's because like these days, every time I hear about yet another open world game, I'm like, I'm.
I understand that feeling.
I can't. I can't do it, and I've been meaning to try it, and I'll be honest with you, I probably never will. I mean, I still haven't played the sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn simply because the idea
Same.
of it just exhausts me.
Yep. No, that's totally fair.
Which is weird for me to say. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's weird for me to say because I play an absolute metric shit ton of Final Fantasy 14. Which is the never-ending Final Fantasy game. So it's weird that the idea of a single-player open-world game would just make me tired, but it does.
I think a large part of that is the fact that 14 you're already in, right? You're maintaining. There's stuff being added and you're keeping along with it. Whereas I'm not against open world in concept, but I absolutely do have a reaction where when I start one up and I open the world map for the first time, sometimes my brain just shut down. I'm just wait, there's how much of this? I gotta do, how much of this do I have to walk through right now? I will say, not pushing one way or the other, but of the big open world, lots of things to do games, I think Tsushima is one of the better paced ones. It's not quite as overwhelming as, say, any recent Assassin's Creed, but I totally understand. I get that reaction.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I actually think Ghost of Tsushima is the last big open world game I played that I really enjoyed my time with. I definitely have my issues with it. I didn't really care so much for the story. But I think that the world and the presentation is really good.
Yeah.
I think the combat is, your results may vary as well, but basically for me at this point is I just want them to make some of the side activities a little bit more interesting. And the story just a bit better, and I don't think Jin was a very interesting character, so whoever this new protagonist, I would like her to be more interesting in that same sense. And I just want the combat to be polished up because so basically, if you don't remember from just exposure, John, but the combat's there are these different stances, and excuse me, and the stances are like weak against certain enemy types.
Okay. Yeah.
And
yeah,
so but like in all reality, you can kind of do whatever you want. Like it doesn't feel like that this is like monumentally better using one stance against the enemy that it's weak against versus using like any other stance.
So it's kind of like
Uh,
Bushido Blade, but in an open world game.
A little bit.
I'm not familiar with that IP, so
Yeah, I will say, and maybe this is just recollections working differently. I don't recall my experience with the stance system being quite that way. It was definitely advantageous for me to like change on the fly based on what like weapon type or style an enemy was using. Like I remember that being a pretty significant thing. I also, however, tend to front load stealth much more. Like if I'm in a situation where I have to worry about main combat, I've already been hecking up.
Well, also be aware that we can't all be MLG level players like Cam.
True.
So
don't don't no. I like I remember one of the stances you basically like if you charge it up you do a kick, which I think was effective to like enemies with like a spear, but outside of that everything else just kind of felt just the same to me. I'm sure like I'm sure that it was effective more so to a certain extent, but I'm just saying that it wasn't like a thing where I felt, oh, I need to switch to the stance to do this thing. Like
Sure.
it just kind of I just wanted the stances to matter a bit more in this next one.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that state of play is happening at 2 p.m. Pacific time on July 10th. Next story, Kevin. It didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
We didn't get Final Fantasy 9 remake.
It's fine. I think I'm perhaps of the audience where like, look, I would absolutely. We've talked about this a few times in the cast already, but like, I would love for there to be a remake. Like, I'm totally down for it. I'm also of the mind that it doesn't need one necessarily. Like, I go in weird waves with remakes where I'm like excited for them, but I'm also like, but did we have to? But yeah, a lot of people were hoping we were going to get an official confirmation of a remake because that was part of the NVIDIA leak all those years back, and everything else has been coming true, including Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster, which a lot of people gave up on. And so that's just cemented harder, like, oh, the 9 has to be happening. And so people thought that, the anniversary date would be the day to do it, which came and went, and we did get some announcements, but not that. So, they had a bunch of cool merch to show. We got a nice little I don't know if you would technically call it like I don't know if it's really intended to be like a children's book, but there's this like art book that is a like prequel story where it's Vivi growing up with his dad, which is a cute idea. Over the last couple months, we've seen a whole bunch of merch get revealed. A lot of Vivi focused stuff, actually, like more than any other character. The Vivi mug, the Vivi hat. It's like he's a really popular standout character or something.
Yeah.
And then I think the thing that was kind of salt in some people's wounds was that when the anniversary date hit, they posted like, oh, special commemoration video. And it was just like a highlight reel of clips set to music. And it was like, yep, that's the 25th anniversary, everyone. So anyone that was like hoping to see an actual like announcement of a remake was just like, what is this? what am I seeing right now?
So I know for a fact that a remake existed.
Yes.
At one point, it did. Like 110%.
Yes.
I know
Oh
this.
no, I agree. Like the NVIDIA leak. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I also like I know right? Like I know it did.
Yeah. He has a scoop.
Whether or not it's ever going to see the light of day, I don't know. I suspect that whatever was being cooked up wasn't up to the standard that Square Enix wanted. Which happens all the times, or like all the time in games, right? Like things are taken back to the drawing board or things are scrapped. Last year we started seeing like, new artwork for Final Fantasy 9 characters, right? Very obviously meant for a new game. Like you're never ever going to convince me that those designs were not meant to promote a Final Fantasy 9 remake.
Sure.
You're just never going to do it.
Yeah. Well, like Cam and I mentioned, like 8's anniversary went by with nothing like that, and then
Nothing.
9 is suddenly
Yeah.
here's all this art, here's all these illustrations, here's
Yeah.
all this new
Yeah.
content that was made for
I
reasons.
mean, 8 is also a very subpar Final Fantasy, but we don't have to get into that.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm just saying. I mean, Cam, you bring me on, you get what you pay for.
No, I know. Yeah, I know what I signed up for.
But you know, I would love a remake of Final Fantasy IX. If we don't get, I would feel better about not getting one if we had a better alternative on modern consoles than that really crappy mobile port that they could just kind of schlocked over to PlayStation and Switch. You know, the one where the Ultra HD characters clash out against the very blurry backgrounds, and when you're naming your characters on PlayStation, it says no emojis. It's like, wow, you guys couldn't even change that.
Yep.
Like, if there was a better alternative, just like the original PlayStation release, I would be okay with that because I think it holds up fairly well. But
Yeah, which
you
the
know,
only
like,
way to really, the only way to play that really or pick that up now, other than hunting down a copy, is I think it's still on the PS3 store. If you have a PS3 and hook that up to the
it
internet,
is. Yeah,
that's like
it
the
is.
one
or
option.
like on the Vita.
Yes, but
Right?
Vita
If
you
have a
can't.
Vita lying around.
Yeah, but you can't purchase directly. You have to like do the whole buy on one
Yeah.
platform transfer. It's a whole thing.
Yeah,
I love
it's a pain in the
Ultra
ass.
Tekken. Yeah, it's a headache.
I think I have actually. I think I have 9 on my Vita, so that's kind of good to know.
Yeah.
That the Switch version isn't. I probably will still play the Switch version because like it's just easier. But
It's playable, but it absolutely is a lackluster version in terms
Yeah.
of as Joe was pointing
Yeah.
out. Like they redo all the characters and like the character models look pretty solid, but then the backgrounds and everything are just not great. I know there's a
Garbage,
popular mod for the PC version that I think they
The
cleaned
Moguri
up
mod.
and- yes.
The Moguri mod. Yeah, I personally don't like it. I'd rather like I have ways of playing the original game
Sure.
on handheld devices, so I would honestly rather just do that. But I'm also like a purist on this stuff, right? Like I like the like for the most part. So, you know, will we get a remake announced? I give it 50-50. You know, I give it 50-50.
It feels like it needs to be sooner than later at this rate, right? Like we don't
Yeah.
there isn't necessarily a known expiration date other than maybe assuming it should be by the end of this year that we should know. But even
Yeah.
that's kind of just
If it's not by the end of the year, it's not happening.
it's extremely unlikely.
I feel like I don't know because part of me is like, oh, this makes so much sense. Square should do it, but Square like sometimes has like a Nintendo mentality where it's like they see what people want and they're like, we're not going to give that to you.
Yeah.
Where like they know that we know about the Nvidia leak and we know that
Sure.
and then they saw
I'm
the
over
list
here.
scene and stuff
I'm
like
over
that.
here for years screaming for Parasite Eve and Xenogears, and Square just refuses to listen to me. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like everyone just knows, like they must know that people are like waiting to hear something about that they're like, oh, people really want this. Maybe we should revisit this if this is something that like, if it's something that they ended up actually like shelving or canceling or whatever, because we talked about it on the pod before, but I saw that Bernie Brombacher was like told by someone that game was canceled. But that was like the only instance I heard of it, and I was just like, okay, like maybe this is true, maybe it's not. But after hearing what John said, like it's just kind of backing it a little bit more that like, oh yeah, this might not be happening.
Yeah. And I think something too that like you brought up, John, that I think is worth keeping in mind for something like this, right? Is that like I feel like people are always excited by the concept of doing it, right? Like yes, I want a remake. And the general concept of a remake I like would be good. That doesn't mean that what was in process, like what was being worked on, is what necessarily people have in their heads of like what a good remake would be, right? That's kind of the problem you run into sometimes. And so maybe it's for the best that this particular version that existed at some point didn't come to light. Maybe there was a reason why they decided to stop. And I do think, to what you were saying, Cam, it doesn't mean that like a remake is forever off the table. It just means it's that much farther in the future and it's a whole other project, aside from the one we've been hearing about for so long.
I agree.
We'll just have to wait and see.
the remake was going to make Queen of Quen the main character. They,
Am-
it's just Frog Hunt.
Amaranth was going to become you were dateable and given a huge backstory. In fact, he was actually the second character you would recruit in the remake. So I have sources on the ground who feed me this very important and accurate information.
Beautiful.
Last story of the day that's worth mentioning. Tails shared a message on their social media, basically, like a thank you to the fans, and that like the 30th anniversary is coming up, and it's like, hopefully they got some stuff cooking for us. So the post said, "A timeless tale never fading over the years, an adventure worth reliving endlessly. Now step into the story once more. We thank you as we journey toward our 30th year."
You know what it smells like to me, Cam? It smells to me like a Tales of Phantasia port or a remake.
That's
Okay.
cool.
Is that is that like something that you've been hoping for a while? Because I've heard rumors that there's been recent rumors that like they're remaking or porting again Tales of the Abyss. I've heard rumors for a while now that Tales of Destiny is going to get a remake.
Yeah, I mean, Abyss was a long rumored one because that one actually got trademarked. I think there was like a renewal on whatever at like the start of this year or late last year. So I know that's why Abyss has in particular been thought about. Fantasia would be great. I mean, there was a remake that happened in Japan only that we didn't get. That was on PSP.
On the yeah. Honestly, I'd be happy with just like I think Tales of Phantasia holds up wonderfully, like from a visual standpoint. I would just love it cleaned up and ported to modern systems, or maybe like a pixel remaster situation, like what Square did with the original 6 Final Fantasy games. But yeah, like it's like I think like when you talk about like Tale as Old as Time and or whatever it is that they said, like that to me sounds like they're going back to the very beginning and probably doing something with Fantasia or Eternia. So that would be my guess, because like the for example, the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster sold incredibly well. The Suikoden 1 and 2 HD remastered sold a lot more than Konami was expecting. Like there's an Live Alive sold over 2 million copies, I believe. Like there's an audience and a desire for and Square is making a big deal out of the Dragon Quest HD 2D game. So there is absolutely a desire for older games to come back, and these companies are like, they see this and they're starting to realize this. Which means hopefully Atlas would give us Persona 1 and 2 at some point. But I expect that we'll probably see like a Tales of Phantasia remaster situation.
That'd be dope.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I'd be very down. I
that
would
is a series. Go ahead.
Hey, Cam, sorry.
I was gonna say that is a series that like in general I've been wanting to like. There's a lot of series I've played most of, but like haven't finished, and Tales is definitely one of those games where it's like, yeah, I've played like maybe a handful, but I've only finished like like even less than that, and I want to play like as much as that series offers to us in the US right now. And so the more that they like, when it comes to like a new remaster, I'm just like, yes, that's what I want. Like, equally as much as a new entry. So I'm very excited to just get more Tales.
Yeah, and all I was gonna say is that, like you, John, I would absolutely be down more so for either a cleaned up remaster port of the original style, as opposed to doing something like the PSP one again, or like a pixel remaster style. Like, okay, we're remaking, but we're keeping this aesthetic in mind.
Keeping the original vision, yeah.
Yeah, because I honestly I think a lot of people know Tales more for like the later art style that cemented with like Symphonia on when we got to like full 3D. But I love the look of the older pixel ones. We didn't get too many.
Beautiful. They're beautiful pixel art games. Yeah,
they're great. And so I would love to have that come back.
I think it's one of the few RPG franchises that haven't had their older games. Look, we just got the Lunar remasters, which
So
were fantastic.
good so far. So
Yeah,
good.
they were fantastic. They did a great job on those, and so yeah, like it feels like Tales and like Arc the Lad are the two left that I really like, the two franchises left that I really want to come back. So,
And Breath of Fire.
and yes, God, please, Breath of Fire. Like,
yeah, that's actually my number one. That I'm just like, Capcom, please, just
Capcom, what are you doing? You're bringing everything back. Like, where's Ryu? Like, come on.
That Ryu, we got plenty of
not the other Ryu. Yeah, yeah.
I can dream.
Yeah, I haven't played any of those games, but I want to get to them. I have all the Breath of Fires. I have Arc the Lad 1 and 2 on my Vita. Like I got them. So I just need the time to get to them.
I just don't know what you're waiting for.
Time, because I don't have time. Yeah, because like right now it's just like Legend of Dragoon for our Campfire catalog. And then another game for our next Campfire catalog. And then I've been playing Lunar, and that's been really good. And yeah, I don't have the time for much else right now, because we're already behind on Legend of Dragoon. Like we were supposed to get that episode out at the end of June.
Yeah.
But when we found out how big the game was, we told our audience, like our patrons, like, hey, this is coming late, but we're gonna pick shorter games for the next Campfire catalog so we can catch up and we don't have to worry about getting like majorly dragged behind. But yeah, so now we're gonna get into what we've been playing. John, what have you been playing?
Well, I have been replaying Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga.
Oh my god, so good.
Not the lesser 3DS port. I want to be clear. I am playing the original Game Boy game on Nintendo Switch Online. I find that the 3DS remake is good, but like that the new art style just loses a lot of the charm that the original 2D pixel art has. And I haven't, like, there are games that I play annually. Superstar Saga I haven't played in a couple of years, and it's just as good now as it was a couple years ago when I last played it. The humor holds up. It's an incredibly funny game. It's still, it like whenever Mario and Luigi just start muttering in incomprehensible Italian, like, oh, like it's just really, really funny. The combat system holds up extremely well. It's one of the best things about the Mario and Luigi franchise. Just an absolutely timeless game, and I am having a blast with it. Superstar Saga is one of those games that just is never gonna get old, never gonna get bad. It's never gonna be. It's one of those games that will be untouched by the ravages of time. So I'm having a lot of fun revisiting Superstar Saga, and I've also been playing a lot of Mario Kart World. So and obviously Final Fantasy 14, which is like half of all the games I play. So
an evergreen. What have you been playing? That. Just always, any given day.
Final Fantasy 14, yeah, like, every week, several times every week. Usually, when there's nothing else happening, like, every day. But right now, it's a few times a week, because, I got my Switch, too, so.
Last year, I restarted 14, and I got through the base game. I'm slowly but surely trying to, like, get caught up to date with 14, but, losing my job. Losing my job last year and just not being able to get a job yet since has just kind of thrown a wrench into like being able to commit to much of anything. So I just game wise. So I'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, I will say I did mess around with a free trial account just to like revisit it because I just was like, yeah, like maybe I want to give this another shot. Getting through vanilla is so much faster now.
Like, it is much faster, much more streamlined.
As long as you do like main story and your job quests, you're pretty much always going to be a high enough level. You don't really need to do a lot of other like zone quests or any kind of grinding. Like you can if you just want to do that content and see what's there. But if you're just trying to get through like main vanilla plotline stuff, you can burned through it so much faster than
Yeah, you
the
can.
first time I played. Because my first time through, I think I picked it up when the second expansion was coming out. I forget the name right now.
Stormblood.
Stormblood. Yep.
Stormblood. I picked it up when Stormblood was coming out because I love red mages. So I was just like, oh, like they're adding red mage. And I got through vanilla and I hit the wall that is all of the like post vanilla pre Heaven's
Yes.
Word content.
Yes.
And all my friends were like, look, this is the worst part. You're gonna get through it, and it's gonna be nonstop great after that. And
Okay,
then I
okay.
didn't get through it. But
I'm gonna go on a rant for a second because like I was told that too, and then I told some of my friends that like, oh yeah, I have to get through this part, like but I know that you can also skip this part, and they were just like, this part is incredibly important. It's incredibly important for the story moving forward. I'm just like, but I was told it was like the worst part of the game.
I mean,
what are you talking about?
it can be important and terrible to experience at the same time.
like yeah.
So
I will
that's the
say this.
situation. It's just like it's the worst part of the game, but like it's super important for the story moving forward.
Everything after that is some of the best storytelling in the entire franchise.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard. I just
Incredible characters, incredible villains, like just
I've
just
heard
great
like
stuff.
Shadowbringers and Endwalker is just like a incredible
Yep.
back to back.
Like everyone that I know that played Shadowbringers the year it came out, that was their game of the year for that year. Like they're like, this is the best thing I played. But I do want to go back. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. If we're still talking about 14, let's continue.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, and like Endwalker kind of caps it all off by all of these expansions have like post expansion storylines to kind of continue the thread a little bit. These usually last about a year, and Endwalker was really special because what they did was for the first time in the entire franchise, they brought a major villain from the mainline games into the mainline story of 14. And that is Golbez from Final Fantasy IV, Golbez and the Four Fiends. And so like that was really exciting because it's like, oh shit, like we're actually getting like some of the older bosses like Kefka and stuff, they're like raid bosses, right? But this is actually part of the main storyline where just Golbez shows up in the aftermath of Endwalker, and it's like, oh my god, like here we go. And so it's kind of a retelling of Final Fantasy IV in a way, which is really, really cool. So yeah, Endwalker especially was, I think, probably my favorite expansion period.
Interesting. Yeah, I know it juggles depending on the person between Shadowbringers and Endwalker for sure. I know some people that also really like Heaven's Ward. But
Heaven's Ward is really good.
Yeah, I do want to go back to Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga because that is definitely like in my probably top 25 favorite games of all time. Like I love that game. I because for me, I'm not a big Mario guy in general. Like Mario's like, oh, it's more Mario, and then Mario and Luigi just felt so refreshing because one, the game they make the game like so self-aware of like Mario and like, oh, you're Mario's brother Luigi, like, and
how ridiculous the whole thing is. Yeah,
and just how original it felt. Like there's really, you go to a completely new kingdom. The villain isn't Bowser, which is super refreshing. And I understand people like Bowser, but for me, I'm just like, oh, it's Bowser, that's fine.
Yeah.
And the humor, the combat system, the battle theme, so good. And outside, if it wasn't for that one moment in the game where you have to go around the map to find the Yoshis, that is like this is like the closest thing to a perfectly paced game that I've ever played.
Yeah.
Like if it wasn't for that one section of the game, that would be like that game would be perfectly paced where there's like it just feels like there's no speed ups, no slowdowns. It's just you're just moving, and it's just so good. What was your thoughts on Partners in Time? Did you like Partners in Time?
I thought Partners in Time was all right. I think I'll be honest with you. I think if I had to rank them, like I would say obviously Superstar Saga at the top, and then I would put Bowser's Inside Story. After that probably. Partners in Time I would probably put after Bowser's Inside Story, and then Paper Jam and Sticker Star because nobody likes Sticker Star. And then I would, yeah, and you know what? After this, I'm actually going to play Brothership for the first time. So hopefully that'll be our kind of a return to form for the franchise. But
Yeah, I've heard some people really like Brothers. I've heard people be like, "Oof, this isn't great." So
yeah, so
I'd
we'll be
be
interesting to see where I fall on that side of the spectrum. Yeah.
yeah, there's some time because I was super excited about part time, especially after Superstar Saga, because it's like, oh, it has like the babies. I really love Baby Mario and Luigi and things like that. And I thought that game was like very not great. I thought it was just like, well, this is really disappointing, and
Yeah.
this feels like that it wasn't made by the same team that made Superstar Saga. Like it really dropped the ball. It like one of the most disappointing sequels I've ever played. Even though I don't think overall I think it's like a solid game, but like just in the sense of like the context of that series.
In the
I was like,
context
ooh.
of follow, well, I would say Superstar Saga is a hard game to follow up. So
Yeah. But then Bowser's Inside Story, like, and I actually started that this year. I need to get back to it, and like I know most people think that is the best one, but I think I'm gonna fall in line with you when I finish it and think it's, and the reason why for me is I think that Superstar Saga, well, it was just one of those games that I played where like I wasn't really like told anything about that game in particular. I was just told like, hey, this is a really great series to play. And I was actually told that Bowser's Inside Story was like the peak of the series. So I was like, but I wanted to play from the beginning. I wanted to play in order. So I played Superstar Saga on my Wii U, and I was just like, what a joyful surprise that game was. And just how just the concept of like not being really told anything, whether it's like, oh, it's this good or this bad or whatever, where I was just completely surprised and just had an absolute blast and just think so highly of that game because I wasn't like led one way or another going into the game. Kevin, you haven't been playing anything, right? No updates on anything?
No, nothing serious. I dabbled in a couple things this past week. I did start up FF9 just to feel like something during the anniversary. But I mean, I got through like, the opening area basically. I didn't get. I got past the swamp and that was it. Or no, wait, I finished up the ice cave. Yeah, still love it. I'm kind of what John was saying earlier. Like, it would be nice to have like a better version of it for modern systems because I was playing the Switch version, which, like, again, it's absolutely like a playable thing. I'm not going to tell someone
it's
to,
adequate.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, like it'll like if someone's just like, oh, I want to try this game out. Like, is this fine? I'd be like, yes, it's fine, but. It definitely is like a rough one-to-one sometimes, just with seeing what it's adapting and just how it was pulled off. So
I played I didn't have anything else to say. I was like, okay.
Excellent.
I played more Persona 5 Shadows, or the Phantoms X P5X.
how's that going for you?
I finished the first dungeon.
The subway
or
slammer has
palace.
been stopped.
The subway slammer has been slammed. And yeah, I'm still enjoying it. Like, it's one of those things where, again, you don't need to really dive into the gotcha stuff if you don't want to experience the game for what it is. Like, yeah, there's the annoyance of like some pop-ups of like, oh, like you can buy this for this and get this. Like, that's kind of annoying, but yeah, it's something where this really does feel like just a new Persona. It feels like a mirrored version of Persona 5, where there's definitely like, it feels like a what if maybe, or like just like an alternate reality, and just for some reason like the main character can kind of like see visions of like different realities, and I don't really know, like they're planting the seeds and I want to understand where they're going with it. And even though like, yeah, the writing for like the palaces aren't as strong as like original Persona 5 or Royal, it's still Persona 5 in the gameplay, and it's like it's fun. Like I enjoy it. And it's not, it's not a super big commitment either, because most of the fights, unless you're doing like some mini boss or boss fight, you just press the auto button and it just does all the things for you, and it looks pretty, and it's like
Yep.
it does the thing.
That it does
And
feel like a gotcha.
yeah. But it still has like those Persona elements that they fit into the gacha that like work really well, and it introduces things that, like, if I remember correctly, weren't in Persona 5, or they made it a lot more limited. Like, you have a garden, and like you can plant, have a garden and plant plants, and like, yeah, you had like the veggie stuff with Haru, but you like it. It wasn't as again, it was a little bit more limited, where you had to go to her, and it's like, oh, okay, like, and could only go every few days. While all of this, like the stuff that you kind of do when it comes to your resources, is at your home,
Right.
and you actually have a parent in this game. You don't see them, but you actually have a parent in this game.
They're
So it's
around
just
somewhere.
like, yeah, they're like, I forgot if they're working abroad or something like that, but they're definitely not.
They're like
at the
mentioned
house.
at least.
Yeah.
Like it's not just like
Yeah.
They have a text. You have a text conversation with them. Yeah. So,
They're in the
and
they're in the Merchant Marines. They're always gone. So they're off doing stuff across the world. That's what it is.
yeah. And so I'm at the point now where I'm kind of exploring mementos more. And there's also a thing. It pops up earlier, but they're basically like, you can start this now, but you should probably wait until you finish this mission. And it's like, it's a part where you and like Lufel, the owl, and then your first companion, closer, I think her name is Motaha. Y'all end up at Kamoshiro's palace.
Mhm.
Or is that Kamoshiro the bank? Kamoshida.
Yeah, Kamoshida.
Kamoshida's palace, and you're like, what is this palace? Blah 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 blah. You go inside and you run into Ruigi and Morgana, and y'all are working together to get out of there and everything like that. And so it's kind of like this thing where you're being inserted into Persona 5 a bit, but you don't, and it's like you're just kind of seeing what's going on, and it's very weird. It's like very interesting. I'm just like, okay, these are the things that make me want to keep playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that they intersect the Persona 5 characters with the X characters, the way that just again, this is just another Persona 5 game, because like the cross stuff, like I feel like that they make that the main focus in the beginning of the game, because you're like in the beginning of the game, you're literally doing the beginning of Persona 5. You're Joker, you're escaping the casino, but the main story stuff is really your own palaces, and then this is kind of like a side plot thing. At least that's what it feels like to me. That's like how it feels presented at this point. But it also still feels like some things are still being introduced. So maybe like once everything has been introduced, it'll feel a little bit more like, oh, this is the main plot actually, or maybe it's they go hand in hand. But the thing that's weird about the cross, I think it's called like cross faded or cross arc type thing, is that they're split into chapters, which is very different from like the main game experience. So like you'll start a chapter and you're still like doing the thing with Ryuji and Mona, and it's like, oh, there's this many chests, and then there's this many like orbs of greed in this chapter, and you only do like 2 or 3 fights maybe.
Yeah.
And then there's like a little bit of story, and it's like, all right, this chapter's done, here's the next chapter. Like, why are you structuring it this way?
I mean,
It's a very weird way to structure it.
to be honest, this just sounds like gotcha side event, get your resources, and like, yes, there is plot, the things to like help justify it, but it feels like a lot of this is gotcha framework, and they're just doing their best to take Persona 5
Mask
elements
it.
to fit that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Like you know, there you get rewards for completing each chapter. Nothing really major outside of like whatever the chest rewards are.
Right.
During the chapter, I just feel like it could have been frameworked where it's like, hey, here's like this section of the game. When you're done, here's all the rewards, like a normal palace. But I also think that they probably did that because at least when you go to a normal palace, you can just like leave easy, right?
Yeah.
It's not like Persona 5 where it's like, oh, your day's over if you leave the palace. In this one, it would be a little weird to kind of jump in and out of if it was a consistent thing. So the the chapter structure makes sense with that context. But yeah, it's just these two things feel equally more or less significant, but one is being approached in a really different manner. And so I was just like, okay, I guess I just have to play more and just kind of see how it all comes together. But I'm enjoying it. And I'm excited. Oh, I did a 10 drop and I already had on, but I pulled another on and I pulled Morgana in within 10 pulls of each other. That was crazy. Also, Morgana, super OP. Like,
Yeah.
did you pull Morgana?
No, but when I briefly was giving the game a shot, I did look up tier lists just to be like, all right, like who should I actually like? Because you at least for like the novice, like the first couple pulls, you're able to pick which character you want as like a final reward. So it's like, all right, like who's actually useful in meta right now? And I did see that Morgana is basically considered like the top tier support right now.
Yeah, because he has an ability where like I don't know what triggers it. I don't know if it's random or what, but like he has an ability where he'll just AoE heal everybody after someone else does an attack. That's not on his turn. So you don't use his turn to heal. It's crazy. It's really good. But so John, you've been playing a little bit of it?
No.
Oh, okay. You definitely made it sound like you were like, oh, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Like that type of thing.
No. The minute somebody says "gotcha" to me, I shrivel up and die inside a little bit.
I get it. I understand it.
I can't bring myself to. I will say, like I love the Persona franchise. Every time somebody says Mementos, like my '90s ass brain just thinks of those Mentos commercials. Like, and I have this mental picture of like Joker trying to sneak around like, you know, one of the palaces, and like all of a sudden he's got a clever idea to steal someone's heart, and he does it, and the shadow, whoever is like, and he turns around and just flashes his mental. Like, I don't know. I have a weird fucking brain. So
No, it's certainly like no. Joker's trying to do the sneak attack and then gets caught because he's got bad breath, and it's like, hey man, like you need like the fresh maker. Like this is
that's what you need. You need the fresh maker. Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, that's Persona 5 X. I have nothing else to say.
I'll get back to it at some point.
I also did pull Joker's like mythic dagger on my first 10 drop ever. And I'm still waiting to pull Joker so I can use it. And I'm not gonna drop money to try and pull Joker. I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, no, that's how they get you. That's not why it's called gacha, but I always like to think that's why it's called gacha.
But here's the thing with the whole gacha thing, John. I was with you, and then Honkai Star Rail came out, and like I previewed it for IGN, and I was like, oh, this is turn-based combat. This might be a problem. And I was obsessed with that game for a year. Like it made me understand why people like that genre. But then I ended up stopping mainly because the updates were just too frequent. I'm hoping that Persona 5X is like less so, because like each update was I think every 6 weeks, and I'm like, I can't keep up with this.
I don't blame you.
So if Persona 5X is like a bit slower, at least either it's slower with its updates or there's less content in its updates, I think I'll be okay because I'm really enjoying this and I have an actual connection to this IP,
Yeah.
compared to Honkai Star Rail. So, but I totally get it. I totally get if it's like not for you, but I'm just saying like this is like on paper, this is just a new Persona. Like it's structured a little bit differently, of course, like because it needs to attune to the gacha system. But like when it comes to like the story and stuff, like this is another Persona game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I wish my stupid brain could get over the gotcha stuff, but
I don't know.
That makes sense.
My brain doesn't get over the gotcha stuff, and like I give it a shot. Like I did start it up, and like I am planning on trying to give it like another push to see if it can change my mind. But dude, it's hard for me to divorce. Like it's not even like the aspect of like, oh, like pull good characters to get through content. Like I know relatively Persona 5X is actually supposed to be one of the more like, no, you're fine. Like you can use the lower rank characters and you're going to be able to clear content. It's not a huge deal. And like that's fine. It's more of how much the gacha framework infects how everything is structured, where it's like, I got to worry about leveling up my characters with resources, then I got to level up their weapons, but then I also have to level up their skills, and then there's just so much that goes into what turns into the daily grind of like staying on top of how everyone is built in order to stay competent, especially if they're not like the high rank characters. And as we mentioned earlier, like, yes, like story-wise, this does just feel like another Persona, but there absolutely are aspects of it that are adjusted to fit the gacha framework, and it's just hard for me to not notice that stuff. Like, I just see it, and I'm like,
absolutely.
if you like, this is not what a Persona 5 2 would be like, right? Like, sure, it's kind of a sequel and has similar stuff, but like, ultimately, the fact that it's a gacha does impact how it's designed, and it just wears thin on me very easily.
it's just still absolutely soul crushing that beautiful new Suikoden game is a freaking gotcha game.
Yeah. And it's another one. It's another one I'll give a shot just to see if it can change my mind. But I'm probably going to be just as angry. I might be more angry in that particular case actually because how badly I want Suikoden to come back. But fun stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for y'all. I have no horse in that race, and I'm sorry for y'all. Now we're gonna get into the topic of the show, and for the topic of the show, we're gonna talk about the evolution of Final Fantasy.
I gotta bow out of this one. I know nothing about the Final Fantasy games. I'm sorry. This
yeah,
is not my
no.
Yeah, I told Cam why invite you if that's what we were gonna do. Like it just seems
it just
such a mismatch.
Doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, so there's just been a lot of kind of chatter about how Final Fantasy isn't the same anymore, and like
it's certainly been that's been a recurring thing for the last almost decade now. Like I mean at least like starting with 15 particularly, right? Like I mean I know people were mad at 13, but I think the conversation of like
people.
I love 13. Like I think 13 is fantastic.
I think 13's overhated. It's not one of my favorites, but I do agree that the hate on it is dumb. But I would say even when people hated on 13, it was still kind of accepted like, oh no, but this is still Final Fantasy. 15 on is when we get into this weird space of like, well, this isn't Final Fantasy anymore. And that's a whole weird minefield of like what defines a franchise, and is it just the combat system? Is it just there's a lot to get into in that particular subject. I was actually curious, like, I saw that this was the topic we wanted to go with today. How do we want to tackle this? Are we looking at like game by game, broad strokes? Do we just want to talk about what it is right now versus what it could be?
Well, I think you could. I think you could honestly. I think you could separate this like into two categories, right? Like up until Final Fantasy 9, like 1 through 9, you had your very traditional turn-based RPGs, right? Obviously, there are connective threads that tie those games together, like chocobos and behemoths and Faragas and and stuff like that. But those 9 games had the active time battle system, right? Turn-based battle system. Then things kind of started changing with 10. Or starting with 4, yeah. Things kind of changed with 10, right? Things kind of changed with 10. And that was not using the, I can't remember what they called it. It was like CTB or something.
I don't remember
And
their
then
term for it, but yeah, it was
yeah,
it was turn
it was more
based.
like it was more like Grandia.
Yes.
Like yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. And then 12 obviously was more of it's like almost MMO style combat. 13 had the paradigm system, which I think is one of the greatest battle systems in existence.
Correct.
Then 15 had, it was more of an action RPG, and then 16 is a full on action RPG.
Action game.
Yeah.
What I find interesting is, I mean, the first 3 Final Fantasy games did not use ATB at all.
Yeah.
It was just, straight up turn based. And, granted, it was a different landscape back then than it is now, but nobody was like, oh, this ATB shit in Final Fantasy IV, like, this isn't what Final Fantasy is. And I think that for me, people say, "Oh, Final Fantasy is turn-based. That's what defines it." Well, but okay, but like, so is every other turn-based RPG a Final Fantasy game then?
Yeah.
I mean, something that a turn-based combat system is not unique to the older Final Fantasy games. Like they're
At all.
at all, right? Like, I mean, are you telling me Legend of Dragoon is a Final Fantasy game because like it's turn-based, right? Like it's got
I mean, it kind of
who
wanted
stand
to
in a
be.
line. It absolutely wanted to be Final Fantasy VII. It absolutely wanted to be Final Fantasy VII, and it didn't
Absolutely.
succeed. But like, I personally, I think, and this is just me, I think it's a bit arrogant to look at Square, like the owner of the franchise, the developer of the franchise, and tell them, hey, this is not a Final Fantasy game. This game that you are responsible for, that you developed, that you put the name of Final Fantasy on, is not a Final Fantasy game. I don't think it's up to you're free to not like it.
Yeah.
Like you're absolutely free to not like it. But what defines a Final Fantasy game is not a turn-based combat system. Billions of RPGs have a turn-based combat system. What defines Final Fantasy are those connective threads. Things like bombs and chocobos and a Cid in every game, and your Aga prefix spells and those those connective tissues that kind of define a Final Fantasy game. I think that the conversation has been so deep. I think the turn-based stuff is a big distraction. I personally like obviously I love turn-based games, right? And I suspect that Final Fantasy 17 is going to be more of a traditional experience. I would love it if they made another 2D pixel Final Fantasy game. I mean, I would absolutely love that. But I think that I think that people, simply because they may not like something like 13 or 14 or 15 or 16. 16 is actually now my second favorite game behind
Which
behind
I
6.
knew that was a take of yours, and it's crazy. Like, respectfully.
I love it. Fucking love it. Love everything about 16. It screams Final Fantasy to me. I think that just because somebody doesn't like something, like you're absolutely free to not like it, right? And that's a fair point. If you don't like nothing is going to be for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. I don't like Final Fantasy VIII. I can't stand Final Fantasy VIII. I think it's the absolute worst game in the entire franchise. I hate everything about it. But it's a Final Fantasy game. And so just because I don't like it, I can't sit here and tell you it's not Final Fantasy. And I would say the same thing about like 13 or 14 or 15 or 16, right? It's like, okay, you may not like the direction that it has taken, but it's still a Final Fantasy game.
Yes.
And it has Final Fantasy right there in the title. Like, I mean, it is a Final Fantasy game.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
No, I get what you're saying, and I agree with you. I think, and I'm just trying to look through like the people that don't feel that way and the lens that they're looking through, and it's like, I think that you could argue since 12, more notably 13. Like, I think that for a lot of people, they feel like the things that they looked for in a Final Fantasy game just haven't been present for so long, and that is like a big factor. Is like, it's one of those things, like if it happens for like one game, maybe it wouldn't be a real conversation starter, but it's been happening, at least for them, several games now where it's just not really working for them. That they're just like, oh, Final Fantasy isn't what it used to be. Because I think like not for us particularly, but for like a lot of people, the conversation like, oh, like Final Fantasy hasn't been Final Fantasy since like Final Fantasy X. And I think that again, I disagree with that, but I can also understand like the lens that they're coming through because like there was even though like each Final Fantasy up to that point did experiment and try different things and try to differentiate themselves from one another, there were these core elements, not just like the things that you see in the series like chocobos and moogles, like gameplay elements that were always present that are now like not really there. And that's like, and again, I disagree, and I think that Final Fantasy has been the series of experimentation for a very long time. That like I just don't co-sign that, but I can understand like how they got there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think also.
No, please, go ahead.
So as someone who, because I think there was a time where I absolutely think I could have gone down the route of being like, oh, this isn't Final Fantasy anymore because blah, blah, blah. And I probably was thinking that for a good couple years. I think a large part of it, especially for people in my age range, is when you look back at the history of Final Fantasy, it's not just a matter of how those games changed, but also the pacing of our exposure to it. Final Fantasy, like in my mind, the kind of nostalgic golden era for a lot of people, at least again my age, is like 4 through 10, right? Like that's kind of like when the series I think is at sort of a nostalgic peak for plenty of people, and those games were back to fucking back. Like, I mean, we had a time where it was like every year we got a brand new mainline Final Fantasy, and they shared some of these main overarching things. And even though 10 is a different turn-based, I think, like service levelly, people still hold that closer to ATB than like what 12 did with the tab target style. And then obviously 15 and 16 going more action. And so we were getting those games yearly, and we were inundated with like, this is what Final Fantasy games look and feel like. And then 12, I mean, okay, 11 messes with it a little bit because it's an MMO. Then 12 comes out, and that's like, what, 5 years after Final Fantasy X did? And then 13 is another 6? Or no, 7
No. 12. So 12 came out in 2008. 10 came out in 2000. No, so I guess it was. Did 10 come out in 2002? I think you're right, actually.
10 was 2001.
Okay, so it was actually 7 years.
No, 12 was 2006.
Okay, so it was. Okay, yeah, 5 years. Okay, yeah. You're right. It was because I was in Afghanistan when 12 came out. Yes, you are absolutely correct. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, and then 13 was like another 3 years, and then it was 6 years to 15, which obviously 14's in the middle of that as well. And MMOs, it messes with everything. But that does occupy a separate brain space, I think, for a lot of people, despite keeping the main numbered line. No shade to MMOs whatsoever. 14's a fantastic game. I get it. And then, even 15 to 16 was like a pretty, what was that, 7 years? 16 to 23, 15 to 20, I can't remember the exact year.
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
So like, you go from this era that a lot of people were, again, I think a lot of people think of that 4 through 10 space. It was so, like, there was just a density of Final Fantasy stuff. And that's not even talking about the spin-offs, right? Like, Final Fantasy Tactics was the same year as 7. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And you go through all of that, and then suddenly you're getting games at a much slower pace because the scale and budget begins to change so much. It's actually kind of wild to think how fast 7, 8, 9 came out relative to each other, because for that time, those games were expensive as all hell. A lot of people kind of classify 7 as like the first AAA game historically in terms of like what a big budget title can look like investing that much. And so I think that has a very heavy impact on the perception of passage of time, because so many of these were so closely together. And then the experimentation, I think, would have been accepted better if it wasn't, okay, this is what I get, and now I have to wait another 5 to 6 years maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of like, the curse of lengthy ever lengthening dev times and stuff like that. I will say I expect Final Fantasy. So people said Final Fantasy 16 sold under what Square had anticipated, right? Like it didn't sell poorly. It sold fine, but it didn't sell what Square had wanted it to sell.
Yeah.
But
And
also, let's be clear, Square overestimates.
They overestimate everything.
Very often.
Oh,
They have an
everything.
overestimate problem.
Everything. They do. They absolutely do. And Final Fantasy 15 didn't help because that game sold tons, right?
Yes.
And so, like 16 was never going to sell as much as 15 did. It just was never going to happen. But people chalk that up to, well, this isn't what people wanted. I mean, honestly, I chalk it up to Square needs to make their games available on more consoles from Jump Street, because 16 was only available on PlayStation on day one. It didn't come to PC until like last year, and it came to Xbox like a month ago. So like,
well, and not only that, but also like PS5 just in general, like it's just PS5. It wasn't like a 4 and 5 split, which I mean, given
just
what
5.
the game demands, like, but that is a very narrow audience, especially because that last gen did not have quite as fast of adoption rate upgrading right away, because a lot of games didn't actually require you to yet.
That's why I would expect not only for 17 to be more of a traditional experience, but I would expect 17 to be on Switch 2 as well.
Yes.
I think that's 100% gonna be what happens. I don't think, not that it won't have the scope of something like 15 or 16, but I think visually they will make sure that this is a game that can run on the Switch too. I don't think they're going to make that mistake again with Final Fantasy 17.
That is certainly the route I want this to go.
Yeah,
I would like that, and like it. Honestly, I mean, Square has told us this themselves, like straight up. Like that has been part of their thing the last 2 years, is being like, hey, you know what? The console exclusive thing maybe wasn't actually the best route. We want to start bringing things to more systems right away. And they've talked about, realigning their goals in terms of which projects they're investing in and how many at once. And only time's going to tell what that actually means, like in practice, and what projects are deemed as fine.
Hopefully it means more emphasis on either legacy titles being brought to modern systems or their flagship franchises, those franchises like Final Fantasy and Nier, and less putting out schlock like the Diofield Chronicles, right? Which was
I actually enjoyed
awful.
Diofield, but I know
I hate it. Oh god, I hate it.
It has its
I hated it. Valkyrie Elysium was a massive disappointment.
Oh, that one I didn't. Yeah, Elysium I was angry at. I was very angry at Elysium.
Yeah. So I'm a huge Valkyrie profile fan.
Yeah.
So
good.
Great
games.
But yeah, fantastic. Valkyrie Profile 2, where is it? Port it. But as for Final Fantasy, conversations Final Fantasy. I think that the sales of the Pixel remasters 1 through 6 really showed Square that there was an audience hungry for those more classic experiences. Which is crazy to me that Final Fantasy IX Remake might not come out. Knowing how many people want that classic turn-based experience. I think that Final Fantasy as a franchise has room for both of those. I think because, like you said earlier, Kevin, the Final Fantasy is a franchise that has innovated for many, many years and kind of changed its identity and experimented with new things. But they're also not afraid to go back and make something a bit more traditional. Look at what happened after Final Fantasy 7 and 8, which was very cyberpunk and stuff like that. Oh, yeah. 9 completely went back to a medieval experience with wooden airships and, swords that weren't buster swords, or gun blades.
Yeah.
And so I would expect 17 to be more traditional, and I don't think you're going to wait as long as you did between 15 and 16 for 17. Simply because I think that Square is slowly getting better. Still not awesome, but I think they're getting better at reading what their fan base wants.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the reaction to Final Fantasy Tactics Remastered. People are like, oh my god, finally, and so I think that Square, the new CEO, is taking all of this into account. And I'll be honest, like, touching on 9, if it's a subpar experience, I'd rather it not come out at all. Like I'd rather not play it. So I think it's time for Final Fantasy to, as much as I love 16, I think it's time for Final Fantasy to return to more of a turn-based experience. Just because, like, innovation is great, and it's a very good thing, but it's also never a good thing to completely forget your roots, where you come from.
Sure.
Because people are always eventually going to want you to gravitate towards something that is comfortable for them. And I think that's what Final Fantasy 17 probably needs to do.
Yeah, and there's still that space to innovate within those roots still, right? Like it's almost like it's going back and talking about like, oh well, if we went back to a particular branching point in our design philosophy, what if we didn't lean towards this direction but went for a different change, right? I think that was even like Sakaguchi's comments about what he did with Fantasian, where it was like, oh, if I was still like making games called Final Fantasy, this is kind of what I thought I would go towards. That's absolutely not like innovation doesn't have to be abandoned. It's just that you're channeling it in a different way.
Hell, bring the Gooch back to develop Final Fantasy 17. I would love to see Sakaguchi back at Square. That said, for the next Final Fantasy game, like give Yoshi P a break. He is very clearly overworked. And give it let the man focus on 14. He was also in charge of the Final Fantasy Tactics remaster, and to be honest with you, I think that's probably what made that take so long, was the fact that he's also in charge of 16 and 14.
Yes.
Give somebody else the helm, and let them and see what they can do with the Final Fantasy franchise. Now there are things that like, we talk about innovation, we talk about changing, evolving gameplay styles, right? There are things in the Final Fantasy franchise that I don't want to see happen. And I would say that the first and foremost of those things is don't make this shit open world. Like 15 was borderline. Do not make this an open world collectathon, please. Like that is one thing I do not want to see from Final Fantasies. I don't want this to become a like a Breath of the Wild experience. I think that works for Zelda. I don't think something like that works for any JRPG. Yeah. Don't make it like a roguelike. Like I don't want a Final Fantasy roguelike. Like a spin-off might be fun, but not something, not something in the main franchise.
Yeah, no, Stranger Paradise too. I'm with you.
Yeah, and I'm somebody who loves Stranger Paradise.
Oh no, me too.
I
poke fun at it, but it's a great game.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. It's a great game. Jack is a perfectly ridiculous protagonist. Spoiler, he's Garland. I love that people guessed it before the game came out, so they're like, oh, screw it, he's Jack Garland. Like they figured it out.
Code.
Yeah. But I don't know, like, Cam, what do you think about the direction of Final Fantasy? Because I know that you famously have a different opinion than me on Final Fantasy 16.
It's not that I don't dislike Final Fantasy 16. I just think I think that the way that they marketed that game, the things that got me really excited and I thought would be like, oh, this is a great feature that should be used in more JRPGs, just really didn't matter. Like the whole like active time lore stuff. Like I was just like, okay, we're gonna give this really rich history, lore, background of these characters, of these houses, blah 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 blah. And this is a post me playing Trails and being spoiled by the things that the world building of that series. Yeah. Like, cool. This is the thing that I feel like has always, not always, but like of the Final Fantasies that I've played. And like played all the way through, has been missing. Like I feel like a lot of Final Fantasies just start and you just kind of have to figure shit out as you go along. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they do that really well. I think they do that really well in 7. But then there's like other games where it's like, oh, okay, like I don't really know what's going on. I'm not really interested in because this is something that like me and Kevin talk about like early on, which is like what are the things you look for, care about in a JRPG? And one of the things I care about is that like I want to care about the world I'm trying to save. And I think that Final Fantasy is very hit and miss with that. And so, you know, sometimes they're really good about it, sometimes they're not great about it. And so like with 16, I was like, yeah, like, you know, I like Clive, I like Joshua, like I don't really care about the events that are it's a very personable story that is just but it's like this you know, but then you get these massive like icon fights and it's like all of this
Oh,
is
so good.
happening due to like a very in the grand scheme of things a very like
Hmm.
small story, and it's just like it that just kind of like took me out of it a little bit. I mean, I think the fights are cool, you know, like don't get me wrong, but I just like in the context of the story at large and the world at large, and it's like this seems a little over the top considering the context that we have.
I don't know.
Um,
Like, I think that, like, I actually, that was one of the things that was refreshing about the story to me is that, like, you know, as epic in scale as the game itself was, like, it was this small centralized story with a defined protagonist, and that's honestly one of the things that took me out of 12. Like, 12 is also not one of my favorite Final Fantasy games, simply because, like, the story was extreme, like it was about politics. It was a story
Yeah.
about politics,
It was a
and there
Matsuno
was
game.
and there was no real main protagonist. Vaughn was just kind of there. He didn't really. Vaughn actually didn't have much to do with the story at all. Like, if there was a protagonist in the story, it was actually Ash. Um, but again, like, you know, it and, like, you know, and Vayne Solidor in Final Fantasy 12, you don't really get a lot of time with him. You only ever really confront him at the very end. So I didn't feel like a personal animus. I didn't feel like a personal animus toward him. And so, like, it's simply because I think that, like, Final Fantasy 12's story was too broad. So I which matched the scope of the world, but again, like, the world seemed very disconnected to me, which is
Yeah.
why I appreciated 16's. You know, like, you know, okay, we've got these huge scale icon fights, but really the story is focused on Clive and Joshua. And so me personally, I like that's something that was appealing about it to me, but I totally understand, Kim, why you would feel the opposite.
yeah, yeah, it's just like again, they introduce these things that make me want like that's like, hey, like this is about this house and this house and this house, but it ultimately really didn't matter, and I just like it just didn't really it just wasn't needed to me. Um, and so it's like, oh, they tried to do something that really didn't even need to happen in the grand scheme of things because it was so focused around Clive and Joshua. Um, and so, and you know, and I love political stories. Like like most of my favorite stories of different mediums are political stories.
Yep.
Like Naruto is a political drama. Like that is what, as an anime, like, you know, you might be like, oh no, it's about a boy. No, like no, it's all about political intrigue. Like
Well,
my favorite stuff in Naruto is learning the history about the village and the the political intrigue with the different villages and like all of that. Like that is the stuff that makes Naruto to me so compelling. And then it's just
well,
like, oh, what are the ramifications of those things that happened and how they're affecting like Naruto and like the current generation, like you know, for an example. But go ahead, John.
Well, I was going to say, like, and that's not to say that I don't like games with political stories. Like, Final Fantasy Tactics is one of my top 5 games of all time,
Sure.
and there is no story that is more inherently political than Final Fantasy Tactics.
Sure.
But it never loses focus. That, you know, despite all the political machinations of all the multitude of characters you encounter throughout the game, the focus of that game is still the story of Ramza and Delita, and the game never loses that focus. And I felt like that's something
Mm.
that 12, especially since 12 was set in the same world of Evilise, I feel like that was something that 12 just kind of, like, you know, lost, you
Yeah.
know, kind of
Oh,
lost in
sure.
the sauce. You
I
know,
can see that.
but yeah, and so, you know, uh, again, like, I think one of those things that, you know, if you want to talk about what makes a Final Fantasy game, right? It's like, and I guess maybe that's one of the reasons that 12 was so weird for me, is that, like, you know, the game didn't really have an overarching, you know, protagonist or like a real antagonist. It was just all politics, and that works in something like Tactics, where you still have a focal point, But I think for a Final Fantasy, I think you absolutely need to have that focus on a protagonist. I think that's one of the things that is very important in Final Fantasy games. Not that those games, not that a protagonist is what defines Final Fantasy, but every single Final Fantasy game has had that one character that has something that's special about them, right? Like, Cecil was actually a paladin and the son of a Lunarian the whole time. Like Terra is actually half Esper. Cloud is a weird amnesiac, guy who has Sephiroth cells in him. Zidane is a genome with a monkey tail. Titus is a dream. I mean, like most Final Fantasy protagonists have something very unique about them, and 12 just was like, oh yeah, I'm the Sky Pirate, and I don't really have anything to do with the story. I'm here to just kind of observe. And yeah, so I think that Clive was, Noctis was the King of Light, and Clive turned out to be like, Mythos, and he was this creation of Ultima to serve as his vessel. Like, I think that's something that I think that is something that defines Final Fantasy as a protagonist that has something that is unique about them that nobody else has. But that's just my opinion.
No, I think there's absolutely something.
Go, Kevin.
Yeah. No, I do think there absolutely is something to that through line of logic. I do think it doesn't necessarily always hang on just that protagonist. I do think there's something to greater party, like especially 6, right? Where like you could technically beat that game without Terra. Like you could get through and then absolutely just like ignore her.
Ignore her completely. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the thing about 6, right? Is that it's like they wanted everyone to be a protagonist to some extent, or at least like 6, 7 of them. Yeah, and that is I think a very fair critique and read on 12. Part of that I know is because they did change plans a couple times for who they wanted the lead to be. I was actually reading about this recently where one of the earliest plans was actually for a lot of people always like to mention Balthier because he presents himself as the main character, but Bosch was actually the original intended.
Bosch, yeah.
And because
you have a Bosch von Ronsenberg of Dalmasca?
Yeah. Yeah, and like I mean, which makes sense because it even ties a closer tie between him and Gabranth, right? Like Gabranth's really the actual like recurring major antagonist in that case.
He is, yeah.
Whereas Vayne is just sort of the guy you have to punch at the end. But I think it was something because of like I think it was Vagrant Story didn't sell well enough, and they're like, oh, we can't have like a gruff strong man as the lead. We need to go. We need to embrace tradition. We need a young hip kid.
We need a young twink to be the.
I do think people sometimes undersell some of the benefits of Vaughn as a protagonist, but like it would have been better with Bosch in the lead. Just looking at what that overarching story is, like it just makes more sense. A lot of times, like his character arc, I think is a little bit more central, and everyone's a little important to the story in that game. But it's very weird because, yes, like the political machinations are ultimately the actual real plot that's happening, and the main characters are just kind of being ping-ponged between events and places they need to go to, and ultimately a lot of it feels much more reactive than proactive, right? Like the cast isn't out to do a thing, they are constantly reacting to like, oh, well, now we have to go to this place to do this thing, and then maybe we have to do this. It's not about like 6, we're going to go and try overthrow the Empire. We're going to go and do this. 7, we're blowing up Mako reactors and we're trying to like bring this. It's just a very different storytelling vibe, and I think that's part of why 12 just feels so awkward, because you're not really sure what the unifying initial goal is other than, hey, we're kind of in a party together now, and shit's going on in the world.
13 is like that, and 13's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, no,
13's good.
I mean, oh no, I mean, 13 is awesome. I mean, don't get me wrong. I just like, I don't know if I anyway,
well,
go ahead.
13 actually does. But 13 does actually have, like, yes, it's reactive, but 13 also literally starts with, hey, you guys have a goal you have to accomplish or you die. Like, there's still there's still a mandate on the party of like things that have to be taken care of and done, even if none of them want to do it for the first half of the game. Like,
that's fair.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I think I've already talked about it with Kevin. I'm pretty sure I talked about it with you, John. But like, I love 13 so much because I love how the party hate each other. Like, everyone hates each other.
Yeah.
They're like they're. It was just really refreshing. Like, oh, none of these guys get along, and it kind of fucking rocks. Like, I love this.
I just like I love that 13 reminds us all that moms are tough. Like that's one of the things I really love about
Yeah.
13.
Moms are
Is
tough.
Yeah.
that moms are absolutely tough.
Yeah, and I think that I think for me, there, I think moments, just like general like moments, play a big part into like, oh, this is a Final Fantasy game. And they can be like super specific in the story, or they can be very like random off moments. Like I remember the first time that I saw Noctis summon Rama, and he's like he literally picks up Noctis,
Picks
and
up,
it's just like,
yeah,
it like that. I was like, this is a Final Fantasy. Like that was the moment for me. I was like, this is Final Fantasy. This is the shit
Yeah.
that I love in
Yeah.
Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
It's just like because the music was just like it was just so like, oh, the symphony. It was like, oh, this is some Final Fantasy ass shit.
yeah,
And it's like, you know what I mean? And like, man, even like versus 13 aside, if the things that like Habata wanted to really do and Square actually let them release Final Fantasy 15 at the capacity that it should have, that very well may have like ended up being my favorite Final Fantasy ever. Like that game was like it was all I already really enjoyed it, but
yeah.
you
It was
could
a great game.
obviously
Yeah.
tell it was unfinished, right?
Yeah.
And so
It was a
and I
game
just
with a troubled development, and you could tell it in the final version of the game. Which,
and
like,
it's just one of those things that there were so many moments throughout that game. I was like, man, if they just was able to release this game as they wanted, like as it should have been, it would have been such a special. Like, I mean, it's still a special game, but like it would have been so much better than it already was. And I just like, man, I think about 15 a lot. Just like, man, what could have been? Like 13, the verse 13 is a whole nother thing, but like 15 and
Yeah.
what that ended up being, like, man, that also could have just been so incredible. Because like, you know, Arden is like a phenomenal villain.
Phenomenal villain. Yeah,
And they just, you know, they just didn't give him the
Time.
love that
Yeah.
like yeah, exactly. But when you like learn everything that he did, I was like, oh yeah, like I would have been a villain too. Like, what do
Yeah.
you mean?
yeah.
I would have been
Yeah,
the bad guy
absolutely.
too.
No, I mean, God, 15's biggest problem is it has it arguably has some of the coolest fucking lore in the entire Final Fantasy franchise, and uses none of it in the game that was shipped. Like,
Yeah.
like there's just so much backstory stuff and interesting concepts that are flexed in like novel versions and are introduced in some of the side content, and like it's stuff that is like kind of playing a role in the story. You just don't know because you like Ifrit in 15 in the shipped version. Like he just kind of shows up at the end, and you have to like
Yeah.
deal with him, and like you don't know what his deal is. You don't know that he's like a Lucifer figure and like has all this other interesting stuff going on, because the game does zero job like actually showing you that, instead having you drive a car around so you can deliver produce to the local farm. It's just, god damn it.
Yeah.
15 is a very frustrating one for me in that regard.
Do we have anything else that we want to talk about?
I think I covered everything I had. You know,
Yeah.
I will close out what I had to say with, you know, I just want to remind people that, you know, nothing in like we're never going to be satisfied by everything that comes across our desks, right? Like, you know, there's always something, even in the things that you love the most, that is going to disappoint you at some point, right? So like when people like, you know, like there may be about something about Final Fantasy 17 that makes me go like, you know, like I waited all that time for this, right? But there are other things to enjoy as well. You know, it's not everything has to be exactly your cup of tea. The best advice I can give people is to just find the things that you do enjoy about a certain thing and focus on those, and hope that next time it's more your, you know, it's more your flavor of bourbon, you know. So yeah, you know, like Final Fantasy is honestly whatever Square wants it to be in that moment. You know, if Square says it's Final Fantasy, then it may not be, you know, doesn't mean it has to be for you. But if the developer of the franchise says that this is a Final Fantasy game, then you can take it to the bank. This is a Final Fantasy game.
So something I actually really want to bring up, especially while you're on, because we've talked about it on this pod before, and I want to hear your take on this. So I recently played Final Fantasy II, the Pixel Remaster version. To be clear, And I thought that game was fantastic. Like, I genuinely thought that, like, if this game got a proper remake nowadays, I think people would love it. I just think that there's like so many, like, it does a lot of things that like I wish more JRPGs would do, like killing off character like party members and like and things like that, where and there's so many like specific moments in that game that I think are really cool that like I think would be really cool to see in a 3D space. Like the Leviathan taking down the ship and like, things like that where it's just like,
Well,
oh,
Coliseum.
like this,
Yeah.
it very much like felt like, oh, this it really felt like, oh, I'm going on an adventure. Like there's all these like adventurous type moments. That like, you know, sure they can like change the combat system if they want. Like, again, with the Pixel remaster, that really wasn't an issue like it was from previous versions. But like I really liked like it's straightforward, it's simplistic. The story is like genuinely really good too. With like Minwoo and like all that it just had so many like great like and like not even like uh just like random like moments too, like with like Guy and the beavers and like I
Yeah,
really
guys speak
loved
Beaver. Yeah.
yeah, Guy Speak Beaver.
Guys, speak Beaver.
I really loved Final Fantasy 2 and like I'm a Final Fantasy 2 defender at this point because going into it, people were like, "Oh, it's the worst Final Fantasy. You're like not gonna have a good time with."
Again,
But
you
it's
did
just,
play. You did start off with like the most
I
friendly
clarified
introduction
that
version of
though.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
For
I know,
sure.
I know. But that's
For
also
sure,
why you
for
hear
sure.
hate all the time from people is because they didn't
then-
have that as their first. These people
Yeah,
are
and those people need to play the Pixel remaster version and then see the light and be like, "Oh no, this is actually a good game."
So, if somebody came to me and said, "John, I have the first three Final Fantasy games on my desk.
Hmm.
How would you rank them?" I would say, well, starting at the top, you have 3, 1, then 2, right? If somebody said, "John, I can play one of the first 3 Final Fantasy games," but I can only play one. I would say, well, then you need to play 3. Like Final Fantasy 3 is the one you need to play. I think there are some things that Final Fantasy 2 does right. Like you said, like I actually think the characters are pretty good. It's not afraid, much like 4, it's not afraid to kill off characters. Although in 4, yeah, those characters come back, but still. But like Minwoo and Joseph and like Ricard, these guys all stay dead, right? They actually go to the afterlife. There's also a lot that Final Fantasy 2 gets wrong, and some things that I hope, or that I thought might be fixed in the Pixel remasters that they absolutely did not fix was one, like the and I know that you can mitigate this a little bit in the Pixel remaster by turning encounters on and off, but the encounter rate is just too damn high.
Oh yeah.
In Final Fantasy 2. It was a problem that existed in every previous version of the game, and it's a problem that exists here. The encounter rate is ridiculous. 2, and this is a problem that is compounded by the encounter rate. Way too many caves, way too many doors and dungeons lead to just completely empty rooms.
Yes.
Completely empty rooms with nothing in there, and you're like, God damn it! Like son of a. And then you've got two random encounters before you can get out of the room. And then 3, I know that 3, it's a very easy game to break. It is a very easy game to break. But breaking the game involves just sitting there and attacking yourself over and 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 over to level up like a specific skill, because that's how the leveling system in Final Fantasy 2 works. And I personally am glad that Final Fantasy did not stick with that. That is something that is much more... I actually think there's much more Saga DNA in Final Fantasy 2 than there is anything Final Fantasy related.
100%.
Because that is a system that went on to define the Saga games, which Square seems to love to keep throwing at us. Despite the fact that very few of them are actually good. There are some good Saga games. There are some good Saga games, but most of them are not great.
And even the great ones are a very specific audience, I find. There are people I know who are Saga sickos, and they are all about it, and they love...
Saga Frontier 2 is a good game.
Yeah.
Saga Frontier 2 is good. Saga Frontier... I'm sorry, Romancing Saga 3 is good. That's about it, I think. But Yeah, those
You
games are
didn't like
very hit or
Romance and
miss.
Saga 2?
It's okay.
Did you play the
Um,
remake?
No, I haven't played the remake yet.
It's good. I've
The remake
enjoyed it.
does adjust a lot.
But Final Fantasy 2 is one of those games where, like, do I think it's the worst game ever made? By, like, some people seem to think no. Fell off my desk. Do I think that it has the reputation it deserves?
I mean, probably.
Sort of, yeah. Like,
Probably.
there are bad games that I like to defend, right? Like I'll go down swinging, talking about Deadly Premonition. You can throw that's a bad game at me all you want. I know it's a bad game. Fuck you. I still like it.
Yeah.
Stranger Paradise has a lot of problems. I don't care. I still enjoyed it.
He's rock.
Who? Yeah, absolutely. You want to give me a protagonist in Final Fantasy that it's like bullshit, and then turns on some Limp Bizkit and walks away? Like, great, all about it. There's not for me. I'll put it to you this way. I have played all of, obviously, I play 4, 5, and 6 every year. The Pixel remasters have been out on Switch for a couple of years now. I have not touched Final Fantasy 2 at all.
You should go back to it.
I have no desire to. I have no desire to.
I know you have no desire to, but I'm telling you, John, like here's the thing. Like, I get what you're saying with your issues with that game. I think that those issues do not pertain to a remake. Like a 3D, like a major 3D overhaul.
If they actually overhauled and you get rid of the empty rooms. Obviously, encounter rate's a whole tweakable thing for every game. Combat's level up system. I think the main thing here is that Cam really likes the story of 2.
I like the story and the adventure of 2.
Yeah, and so you want to see that channeled into a new form so people can appreciate.
I want that channeled into a new form, and I also think that they could build onto some of the main party members. Like Firian's a guy, more or less. I forgot the girl's name, but she's
most of the party has
a girl.
Yeah.
Lenda's in 5. I'm sorry, what the hell am I thinking?
So it's giving them a little bit more characterization on top. Keep Guy the same. I don't want Guy to speak at all until he outside of that one time. But then and then again the other characters that do play a part in the story, I think, are really good and interesting. Like the other party members that come into play and serve the roles that they serve. I think that I think people would be surprised to be this has been on this has been Final Fantasy 2 this entire time, and it's I don't know. I think that people would really like it if Square, never gonna happen, but if Square did do something like that, I think
that's maybe not gonna happen, but yeah,
no, never gonna happen. But I think people would really enjoy that in a hypothetical. Now, one question one more question I have for you. 2 more questions, actually.
7 more questions, just real quick.
Yeah, no. Here's the thing. I really want it's not gonna happen, but I'm gonna ask anyway. Do you ever see us getting either the paradigm system in a new Final Fantasy? It doesn't have to be mainline, but in a new Final Fantasy. And also, do you think we're gonna see the combat system from the remake project in future Final Fantasies after that's all said and done?
The first one, absolutely not. As much as I love the paradigm system, I don't think Square is going to revisit it. And because it specifically worked in Final Fantasy 13, right? But I don't think you could retrofit that into another game. I think the remake, so the combat system in remake was, to me anyway, kind of an evolution of what we saw in 15.
Yes.
And honestly, I think the combat system in the remake in the Final Fantasy remake games are damn near flawless.
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful combat system, and to be honest with you, if that was the combat system or something like it used in 17, I wouldn't be angry.
Yeah, I always saw the 13 or the remake system a mixture of Kingdom Hearts and 13, but
yeah,
I can also see the 15 influence as well. But that That system is my favorite action system that isn't Kingdom Hearts. So like Kingdom Hearts 2 specifically. So like I very much would love to see that in more games after
Yeah.
remake and
No,
rebirth. And
I think
I
it's
would
a
as
not.
well.
I think it is not an uncommon opinion that if Final Fantasy were to continue in the action route, that 7 remake rebirth style is what people would prefer over
Yeah.
like 15, 16, etc. I
Yep,
think
I
that
agree.
is. I think that is it walks the right line of it is an action game, but the RPG elements still feel extremely strong and present. Elemental types really matter in some scenarios. Party members all feel useful in different ways to where like you're encouraged to flip between them. Yeah, like I think that encapsulates like if the future were to stay action, I don't know if this is how Square thinks about it, but I think from an audience perspective, most people would say like, oh yeah, this is the style I would like to see keep happening. I'm sure there are people who love 16 more, but yeah.
16 is super fun. Like gameplay wise, super fun game.
It's fun.
Definitely one of my more favorite action games. But I said one of. I'm not saying it's like the best action game ever.
I have my takes on 16's mechanics.
Yeah, that's fair. One last silly question, John. If you had to put money on what the last Final Fantasy VII remake game is going to be subtitled, what would you put it?
Dude, it's going to be Reunion, 110%.
Even with the Crisis Core.
Yes.
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 I hope you're wrong.
We're of the same mind on this.
wrong.
Cam does not like this, and I'm just like, it's got to be a reunion. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
No,
that's just.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And like, if it happens, I'm gonna like just roll my eyes and be like, okay, sure. But for me, I'm putting money on Requiem. But also, Resident Evil is fucking called their new game Requiem.
Yeah,
I'm like,
and plus, I feel like Requiem is a title you see in just way too much shit. So I think like from a lore standpoint, like
I know,
like,
but they called Crisis. For me, it's like, no, you
can't followed
you followed the R trend with this Crisis Core remaster. You can't use the same word again.
well, then they could say it like Final Fantasy VII Reunioner.
It's actually going to be Final Fantasy VII Resolution.
Resolution.
Yeah, just there you go. It's the last one.
That would actually be really funny. John, thank you so much for being on the pod for
Hey man,
this
dude,
week.
thanks for asking me, dude. Absolutely.
Where can the people find you and all the stuff you do?
You can look for me on Blue Sky at MagicTechDad. I am no longer on Twitter, and you shouldn't be either if you are. Again, you can find us every Thursday night at twitch.tv/official SDGC at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We always have a good time.
Facts. Can attest. Kevin, did you have anything for us before we dip out?
No, good today.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to the podcast for this week. You can follow me at CamFinalMix. You can follow Kevin on socials at Kevin Kenson. And until next time, we'll catch you later.